All right.
School year is has been far from traditional, and one of the things that as parents you want to make sure of is that your child is getting credit for the time that they spend in front of the computer, putting in their hard work, listening to their teachers, engaging with their friends from school, and so I'm glad that you all are here. um, just before we start, I do want to let you all know of some future workshops that we have coming up. Um, on the 17th, which is this Thursday, we have high school grading, graduation, and supports again. So, as a parent, you're like, I hope my child gets credit for all of this. Who knows? They're in front of a computer, they're logging into an app. What is that like? And so, we'll talk more about what that looks like for high school students, particularly as they're looking to get their grades, get graduation, um, and so please, by all means, join us on the 17th. On September 24th, we're going to start pivoting away from Reopen Strong to talking about how do we support our children as they grow and develop as human beings. So that'll take us into our traditional parent university with Conversation is the New Talk, which is about now that your children are in the house with you, I'm sure that they have more and more questions about life. And one of them is about, well, what about sex? And so that's a topic that we'll be sharing with you all on September 24th at 5:30 p.m. Then October is all about getting ready for college. What does that look like? So October 1st, Fafsa 101, which is also October 1st is also the start date for when you can fill out your FAFSA. So for all my high school families of high school seniors, don't miss this. College admissions 101. As a parent, even though my daughter is an infant, because I want to know what I need to do to prepare early. So please, by all means, join us on October 8th, which is also my birthday. And then October 15th, we have supporting students to and through college. So not only how do we get our kids in college, what do we need to do to support them there, but then also what does that look like once they're there? How do we prep them for life after that? And so you'll be able to RSVP for all of these parent universities and beyond at bit.ly/DCPS parent U RSVP. And one thing I want to let you all know is that anytime we post a bit.ly link, it is very important that you keep it in the capitalization or lack thereof that we show it in. So how it's written is how you type it in. We do have subtitles available for our workshops. And so if you look for the gear icon in the bottom right corner of the video player, you'll see captions, and then you can select the ones that work best for you. And then you can choose a language from the list of available options. It's a really exciting feature that we really like about Microsoft Teams. Speaking of Microsoft Teams, we encourage you all to use this space to use the Q&A feature to ask questions, share insights that you might have, and then upvote other questions and comments by pressing the thumbs up button. It might get there. It's very often that families have very similar questions, and so we encourage you to use the upvote feature so that we know what the most pressing questions are within the community. So please use that feature, but also feel free to ask that question. We also allow for families to ask questions anonymously. One of the things that I do want to let you all know is that this is a moderated chat. So we might not be able to post every single question or comment, and we probably won't post every single question or comment so that folks on our end are able to answer them, or because there are repeat questions. Along those lines, we know that families want what's best for their children. As a parent, that resonates with me. And so it's very easy to get very passionate very quickly. And so we ask that everyone, including folks on our end, assume best intentions. We ask that you go hard on ideas, not on people, and then also accept non-closure. We hope to get answers to everyone's questions tonight, but we also know that they're, especially the more specific the question is, the more work it might take to get you an answer. And so we may not be able to get those answers to those types, especially those more specific types of questions to your personal situation as quickly as you would like. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Andrea Allen, the Director of Attendance. She's in the Office of the Chief Operating Officer. And so she's going to walk you all through it. She also has an outstanding team who will be in the chat to answer questions, but I'm going to let Andrea take over from here.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Thank you, Taylor. I'm happy to be here, and welcome to each of you for joining us. This is an exciting time for us to share. Next. I also, as mentioned, I have a team of people behind me. Micah Backus, who's the manager for the team, she'll be joining me during the presentation, so you'll see her shortly. And I have Adam Backles and Deborah Reed, who are specialists on the team. So rate to all of my support members, and they'll be answering questions and joining as needed. Okay, so let's start here with a grounding. Just kind of take a look at the whole purpose and goal of our teams. Everything is about student attendance, making sure that your kids are in school when they need to be in school, and that we're giving them what they need. So our goal for today is to continue to ensure that every day counts each year, but especially for this school year in 2021. Every student, every school, every day. Thank you. The agenda that we have today is some key metrics and terms that we just kind of want to make sure that you understand, because even if we don't necessarily use them today, when you look at our policies, our procedures, or you talk with school officials about attendance, these terms may come up. So we want to make sure that you understand everything about them. We're going to broach on why does attendance matters. I mean, that's our whole thing. Virtual attendance policies and procedures. I'm trying to let you know what's changed. Attendance protocol, again, if you weren't familiar with the protocol, to kind of give you a high level experience in that, and also to highlight the things that are different during virtual learning, to give you references for supports and resources that are available, and then throughout this whole process to make sure that you're able to ask and have questions answered as we're able. So let's start here. Key attendance metrics. In-seat attendance rate. We always refer to that as kind of butts in seats. If you just think of students actually sitting in their seats when they were going to school, and now it's students virtually logging on, being in Canvas, being in Teams, and working. So the actual definition is the percentage of days attended out of days enrolled by a student or group of students. This includes excused and excused absences. The truancy rate, I know most of you are really familiar with that because it's kind of like the old theme of the truant student, the student that you remember that's illegally away from school. But the more formal definition is the percentage of compulsory age students who ever attended, who were ever enrolled in DCPS, who accrued 10 or more unexcused absences in a given year. So this is just related to unexcused. And the reason that this is important is because it signals the potential need for legal interventions under the District of Columbia's compulsory education law. We'll talk more about those things when we go through the protocol and policies and procedures. Lastly, the chronic absence rate, which is basically, I always say, like a sister or cousin to the in-seat attendance, but it's a slightly different definition because it's a percentage of all students who have missed 10% or more of the school year for any reason. So that's whether excused or unexcused. So if you are not in school, whatever the reason is, and you've missed 10% or more, then that student can become chronically absent. And the reason that's really relevant and where we really hone in there is because the more school that students miss, the more likely they are to become academically at risk. Why does attendance matter? We're going to broach upon that now. So you heard the metrics before, so that kind of gave you a framing. Now to talk a little bit about, and you may already know these things and you may know even more, but for those of you, we just wanted to share some key things. Attendance does matter. It's very important. Your students need to be in school on a regular basis. When students don't attend regularly, they become academically at risk. Studies have shown that poor attendance in pre-K can predict chronic absenteeism in later grades. Kindergarten and first grade attendance impacts reading levels by the end of the third grade. By middle and high school, chronic absences is a leading warning sign that a student is potential for dropping out. So just really kind of think about those things, let them resonate with you as you listen to the rest of this presentation. Thank you. To kind of hone in a little bit more, DCPS lost over 900,000 instructional days due to absences. And if you look at where those absences were concentrated, our chronically absent students accounted for 70% of all days lost. So if you think back to what I said before, that we're able to predict which students are chronically absent, and that chronically absent students are the ones that could become academically at risk, and the students that miss 10% or more of the school year, just really know that if you have 180 days, if a student misses 18 days, that puts them highly at risk. So, you know, So to come to school as often as possible, be present, be accountable, and participating is very important. Next. A little slightly different look, but just to flag here that high counts of absences are directly correlated to lower student achievement. So this shows you what happens when students have high absences on a state math test score. They just don't do as well. So this is just to kind of drive home and to give you some research and some underpinning for why we're saying what we're saying, so that we're not just here talking, but we're giving you evidence-based materials to support our contentions. Thank you. Virtual attendance procedures and policies. We're going to look at that at this point. So, with the national health crisis, we've had to make some changes. When we were in person and attending school, coming physically into the building, we all know that in elementary school, teachers pretty much took attendance in the morning. They entered that attendance, or someone entered it on their behalf, into our system of record, which is Aspen. And we've been doing this since school began. For the older students, we took it period by period and entered it. When we went into a virtual learning, we had to do things differently. So we had to really think about planning. And so we wanted to build in flexibility to ensure that students were being captured and counted as present. And so we're going to talk more about how we instituted these decisions, but just know that we did them looking at the best interests of families and students, and get to provide flexibility for families. Thank you. Micah, I'm going to let you take it from here for a little bit.
Thank you. So like Andrea already touched on, we do going forward have a couple of different plans for when we return to in-person instruction versus what we are currently doing while we are all virtual. So we'll focus today on what the procedures are specifically for virtual attendance. So the biggest difference that you need to know is that virtual attendance will no longer be taken by teachers based on whether or not students are in their classes. All attendance for students while we're virtual will come from whether or not your student logged into Canvas. So you can see this here. We'll repeat this multiple times throughout this presentation, but the attendance requirement is that students log into Canvas at least once per day between 6 a.m. and 11:59 p.m. each night. Aspen, our student information system, will continue to be our official system of record for all attendance data, just like it always has been. That part will not change, which means if you are a parent of a student in grades 6 through 12, if we go to the next slide, you will still be able to see, like you always have, your students' attendance in the parent portal. So whenever you go to this attendance side tab on that daily attendance tab, your students' attendance data will still be in here, automatically imported based on what happens in Canvas. One important thing to note about this is this attendance data will not be available until the following day. So since students have until 11:59 p.m. each day to log into Canvas and be considered present, you will not see whether or not your student was absent in the parent portal until the next day. So your student has on a Tuesday until 11:59 p.m. to log in each day, and then on Wednesday morning, you will be able to see whether or not there is an absence there in Aspen. If we go to the next slide, just some more details on what it means to be considered present in Canvas. So again, we've already said this multiple times, but the requirement is at least once between 6 a.m. and 11:59 p.m. The types of activities in Canvas that are required to be counted present for attendance include actively logging in, clicking on a link for the day's activities, clicking on a Teams meeting link, opening a course, or working on an assignment in class notebook within Canvas. One really important thing to note here is that Canvas does not automatically log your student out. So just opening a browser, saying that you're already logged into Canvas for the day does not count for attendance. You have to actively be doing something in Canvas. So you can log out of Canvas each day for your student, or your student can log out of Canvas each day and then re-log in each day, and that will count for attendance, or just remembering to do any of these other activities listed here in order to be counted present for the day. So hopefully everyone is familiar by now with the procedures and what it looks like to log into Canvas, but for those who might not be, we have a quick little 20-second video that shows you exactly step-by-step what you need to do to log into Canvas.
It's also how DCPS will track student attendance. Logging into Canvas is easy. Visit dcps.sy20 canvas.instructure.com and enter your DCPS Office 365 username and password provided to you by your school. If you're using a tablet or mobile device, you can download the Canvas Student app. Welcome to the Canvas dashboard.
Thank you. So one other important thing to note there, we've said again, 6 a.m. and 11:59 p.m. every day. Every day also does include Wednesdays. So even though there is no live synchronous instruction on Wednesdays, attendance is still required on Wednesdays. So your student should still be sure to log into Canvas every single day that's a school day, including Wednesdays. One thing we do understand is that technology issues, if we go back one, technology issues do happen. Computers break, your internet goes out, power goes out on your block, you spill water on your computer. We do want to make sure that while we're all virtual and very reliant on technology, that we're not penalizing anyone for any of these things happening. So if you are experiencing technology issues or internet connectivity issues, we do have a procedure for this. So when these things happen, you'll want to make sure to call your school and ask to speak to your point of contact, and they will be able to ensure that your student is not considered absent for the day. So give your school a call, ask to speak to your attendance POC, and they will make sure that your student is not absent for the day. They can go ahead and put a code actively into Aspen to log that you had that conversation. So even though your student wasn't able to log into Canvas that day, we'll make sure that there's no absence imported into Aspen for your student overnight.
Thank you, Micah. So I'll take over. I'm going to lead you through a series of questions, things that have been frequently asked. So hopefully we're addressing some questions that you might have putting in the tab. And so we know things that are important to you, or hopefully that we're going to broach upon things that you most want to know. Is attendance mandatory during virtual learning? Yes. Attendance is compulsory, just like as if you were going into the school building, and daily attendance will be required. So you will be required to log in to Canvas, and that would be the proxy for marking you present for the day, or as Micah said, if you're having difficulty, to follow that process with your attendance POC. Thank you. Will students be considered absent for the day if they do not participate in synchronous instruction? So we know that we're providing synchronous instruction where students can log in and interface with their teacher and do schoolwork, but it's not required. While it's important that students are engaging with their teachers during live instruction, attendance will not be taken at the course level, so it will not be taken period by period. Students' daily attendance expectation is that they log into Canvas at least once a day. If this requirement is met, student will not be considered absent. And also that they have the other process if they're having technical difficulties. They will not be considered absent if they follow that under those circumstances. Next. What absences are considered excused? Excused absences are dictated by the DC municipal regulations, and nothing has changed in terms of what types of absences can be excused, except for the addition of required immunization related attendance codes. And right now, we're encouraging families to make sure that the students are receiving the necessary immunizations, because once we start with in-person school, students will have 20 days in which to attend school without having those, and then they will be excluded. And then those things will be an unexcused absence until the student returns. But we won't delve into that more deeply here. Just to flag you, please, please, please get your immunizations for your children and get them ready for in-person when we switch over to hybrid or return to school. Thank you. How should excuse note documentation be submitted to schools? Before your child would return to school, you would send that note back with them. Some families would email something in or call and then send a note in later. And we know that since students and teachers are not actually in the buildings, it's like, well, what do we do? So during the period of virtual learning, excuse notes may be submitted electronically to the student attendance POC. If for some reason a family member is unable to submit documentation electronically due to challenges with technology or other difficulties, Families must contact the school attendance POC to let them know of the reason for the absence and maintain a copy of the documentation for later submission. So you still have to submit that doctor's note or other paper documentation, but if you are not able to submit it electronically, then hold on to those notes, but be sure to call within the 5 days that's required for after your student returns to virtual learning to let us know why they've been absent, and then you can submit the paperwork later. Thank you. This is a list of excused absences, and as I said before, it's not changed, so I'm not going to read all of them, but just keep this information. It gives you the full list. It's pulled from the DC Municipal Regulations and Policy. It's also on our website, so there's no need to scurry. You will have an opportunity to take a look at that in our policy and other documentation. Thank you. This is a time to kind of take a few minutes. If you want to add some questions in, be sure to type those in, and so that we can know what your questions are and be able to address them.
Great. Thank you. So we do have a couple of questions, well, a few questions. What does this look like for our pre-K families?
Well, for pre-K families, they are non-compulsory. So we do still have outreach for them. We have support. They're still expected to participate. We are encouraging families to work with their students. We know that many of those students are young, so they can't log on themselves. So the family member, parents, guardians will have to log on their behalf. So we encourage them to log on between 6 a.m. in the morning and 11:59 p.m. each and every day, Monday through Friday, and to assist their students to engage in the lesson.
Okay, and for clarity, non-compulsory means that our pre-K students are not required to attend. Is that correct?
Well, non-compulsory means that there are certain laws associated with things that will happen to you if you do not attend. There's legal fines, there's referrals. So there's a difference. They don't have the same consequences attached to their non-attendance. So they are required to attend, but it's just that they don't get the external referrals that I'll review later. And it doesn't have the mandatory requirements of things that we have to do in terms of like MPD letters and CFSA referrals, court referrals.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarity on that. And then, will credit recovery be offered this year?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sure that it will be, but I have not read all the documentation regarding credit recovery. So I think that's something that tomorrow, I think it's the 15th we're having with grades, and I can't remember the exact topic, but that should be Sarah Navarro or somebody from her team. They'll be able to answer that question for you.
Great. And then I know that we want to keep moving, but I have one more question for you, and you're doing a wonderful job. Given that students are not able to benefit from the same school learning environment and have varying home situations from where they are now expected to learn from, what kind of accommodations, assistance, and considerations are being given to students and families as it relates to attendance? My concern is singular application of attendance rules to students who are in unequal settings.
Well, I understand. I certainly understand that, and I appreciate the question. And I think just kind of reflecting upon our whole discussion into why we created the logging in process and having synchronous learning is that we built in flexibility, because we understand that some students will be able to have that tablet, that computer, that access where they can sit in front of a teacher for the number of hours that the teacher is presenting. And we know other students may have to do work in the morning, they may have to do work in the evening, or even at night, because they may need parents' supervision or other assistance. So that's why we kind of have put this multiple options out there for families, because we know that it's not one-stop shop, that there has to be alternatives for parents that are working, for students that may be helping younger siblings, and other circumstances that we're not aware of. But what we also say is, whatever the circumstance is, we're here to support and help. So on a case-by-case basis, we're inviting families to reach out to their attendance POC, reach out to their assistant principals in their schools and building principals, so that we'll know of the situation, know of any struggles or help or support that's needed, and be able to put those things in place. So don't be afraid to call.
Okay. And then just for clarity, students, and this is a word that has popped up that I had to Google myself. Asynchronous means means that students, they just have to, right, so they work on their own, and so they just have to log in or use the Canvas app in some form or fashion, either clicking a button or attending a class using the Canvas app to get counted as being present.
Right. So synchronous means that everybody has to still log in, whether you're synchronous or asynchronous, right? You still have to log into Canvas, not just Teams, but Canvas. But if you're participating in synchronous, meaning that you are sitting in front of your teacher as he or she is presenting and participating in class, asynchronous means that you may not necessarily be sitting through all of your classes as they're being shown, but you are still doing the work by logging into Canvas, accessing Team, accessing these other portals, and doing the work and submitting the work and receiving grades.
Perfect. And
okay.
And yes, for the person who asked about the credit recovery question, we will be covering that on the 17th. So please join us for that workshop. And attendance POC at Dcps, again, another acronym, can feel like alphabet soup. POC is point of contact. So, and thank you all for asking us to make things plain. It's very easy for us to get into this whole education jargon, and the whole point of Parent University is to break down those walls so that we're making the information more accessible to you all. So thank you for continuing to hold us accountable. But I do, so thank you, Andrea, for that. And so I'd love to be able to keep going, to be able to see what else you have to share with our families.
Okay, and I'll try and keep that in mind, but check me.
Listen, sometimes I've got to check myself, so I totally understand.
Okay, so we're going to go on to the attendance protocol and talk about also, so I think, some policies. All right, what policies have changed to accommodate virtual learning? So this is kind of like what was the as is and what's the now. So if you'll remember that for those of you that have students or, relatives that have students in secondary schools, we had tied grading and retention, grading for older students, retention for younger students, to attendance. So there was pretty hard and fast number of days that you were allowed to miss. And if you missed more than those number of days, then you, for older students, would fail. For younger students, you potentially could be retained. So for the older students, we've decoupled or taken apart or separated grading from attendance. So grading will basically be described when we talk more about that in another session, but it's going to be on the work you submitted. It's going to be on other tests and evaluatory processes. It's not just if you miss so many days, you're automatically failing a course. And for retention, there's built-in flexibility. Some students potentially could be retained if they've not done well, but it'll be a joint meeting with school officials and parents, and it'll be a unified decision. So you can certainly find out more about that on our website. Attendance protocol requirements, we have things that we have to do at certain thresholds. This year we have no 3-day letter. So, if your student should be absent for 3 days, you're not going to get a letter. In its place is a wellness check, which is basically would be phone calls, emails, outreach to really kind of make that personalized touch to find out what's going on, with the hope of really trying to uncover any barriers and provide supports. Again, at a 20 consecutive absence, unexcused absence mark, the same sort of thing, a wellness check. So we just kind of move in a different direction. We're adding some additional touch points and taking away one letter. Note submission requirement, I broached on that before, but notes may be submitted electronically. Families who are unable to do so should contact their attendance point of contact and submit the note when health conditions allow. Immunizations, I touched on that before. Students will not be allowed to attend physically attend school when school reopens without proper vaccination after 20 days. After this, students will accrue unexcused absences. This will not apply until in-person school is required, but we do need to put in that work now to make sure that none of that happens to any of our students. And the 80-20 rule, I know that many of you know about 80-20, where students, secondary students for DCPS were required to attend 80% of their school scheduled periods. And if they didn't, they would be considered legally absent for the day. So we're not implementing 80-20 for elementary or secondary schools during virtual learning. Thank you. This is a protocol that I've been referencing. And so this just kind of gives you a high level check by check. So 3 absences, excused or unexcused. There's a wellness check, phone calls to identify any technical or other barriers or challenges and put in support. If you've not received all of those phone calls at exactly 3 days right now, it's because we're refining all our data, making sure that as we're capturing data from Canvas that everything is accurate, but those things will be up and running if they've not already started at your school. At 5 unexcused absences, there's a letter, a referral to the student support team to identify barriers and put in place solutions. 7 unexcused absences for, as I mentioned before, compulsory, meaning the students between the ages of 5 by September 30th until they reach 18 will get an MPD letter. 10 unexcused absences, you'll get a letter for students between the ages of 5 and 13. They'll get a referral to the Child and Family Services Agency to explore whether or not it's educational neglect. 15 unexcused absences for students 14 through 17 will get a court referral. And 20 consecutive unexcused absences, that will be the wellness check I mentioned before, consultation with some internal folks to make a decision on whether or not to withdraw a student for non-attendance. And again, this will be in our policies online, so this is just a high-level review. You can certainly go back and look at it later. Thank you. So at this point, we're going to talk about supports and resources, because I know that's probably a big question, and it kind of undergirds one of the previous questions you asked. Thank you. So, of course, we always encourage you to please reach out to your school. Ask to be connected with your school attendance point of contact, or if there's someone in the school building that you're closer to, reach out to them and find out how they can help. We have student support team meetings where that's the goal of the meeting, is to find out what the issue is, what you're having, and to put in meaningful supports. So your attendance POC should be your friend, should be the person that you always try and connect with to get support. Because we know this is a virtual world and that you may not always want to make that phone call, we certainly know you should log into Canvas, as we mentioned before. But if you're having difficulty with that and you need help with troubleshooting, we provided you this website that you can go to that will step you through what you need and who you should contact if you're having those problems. And to help parents and caregivers have a successful start to the school year, we ask you to download our new family guide to learning at home that has wonderful tips and gives you resources also, and in addition to who you should talk to about what. So at this point, that would conclude this slide. And I know that there may be some questions that the team and I can answer. So we're going to start at this point to receive additional questions.
Yes, and Andrea, you've done absolutely wonderfully. Some of the families of some of our youngest learners are pre-K families, and as a parent of a little one myself, this can be a very stressful time, especially this is not the first start that they were envisioning. And so there are several questions about that. Let me see. So let's say because especially for some of our families, their childcare needs are a little bit different, and so they're not able for our pre-K families to attend every single day, does that count against them for anything, or will they lose their spot if they don't log in after a certain number, or for like a certain number of times? What happens for some of our youngest learners in pre-K?
So the ECE team and I, well, early childhood team and I have really discussed and labored over this and want to be fair. We also know that when a student decides that the parent decides that the student's going to attend school, we want them on board. We want them engaged in learning. So we are really requesting that parents log in with their students each day. We know that they may not be able to do synchronous learning. They may not be able to stay on for the entire time, but I also know that the early childhood team also has separate packets of work. They've created a way that parents can work with their students throughout the day, evening or night, or whatever the parent chooses to do, where they can still be engaged and not necessarily sitting at a computer for any particular length of time. But we are requesting, please to log in. And I know that they're still delivering devices, so some families may not have their devices yet. So in the meantime, the early childhood team is reaching out to families to make sure that they are, working on their packets and that they have materials and they're logging them in through a alternate process, marking them present. And that will continue until we have made sure that all families do have their devices. But again, the main message here is please do, if you have your device, log in. If you don't, stay in touch with your school so that they can mark your child present. And just let us know what's going on with you and what supports you need. But at the end of the day, if you don't log in, and if you remember, the protocol has 20 consecutive unexcused absences. So if there's no login, that's an unexcused absence, then your child could potentially be withdrawn for non-attendance.
That clarifies a lot. Thank you so much. And so, but there really is no difference when you log on to the real-time instruction. So like where the teacher is talking to all of the students, or you're sitting with your child working on in their class notebook. You don't get extra points or demerits for choosing one over the other right now, correct?
There's no demerits. We have built-in flexibility for families, so we know that not everyone can sit and through those hours of synchronous or online learning. So we are encouraging you, whatever works best for your household. We encourage you, if you can log in, to log in and do the synchronous learning. If you can't, make sure that your child is doing his or her work and turning it in. We just want to make sure that you're connecting. If you're having difficulties, that the student or parent reaches out to the teacher or to the school to make sure that those concerns are addressed, academic concerns, attendance concerns, whatever they are. But our main goal is that you're doing your school work, and that we have to have you log in between 6 a.m. and 11:59, Monday through Friday, to be marked as present. Or if you're having technical problems, to call in so that we can mark you present. So just think of present means Canvas, logging into Canvas, or calling and getting marked as present. Doing your schoolwork is your grade, right? So whether you're doing it synchronously or you're doing your work independently and turning it in, you still need to access that work and do it, and make sure that you do it to the best of your ability and get help if the student is having difficulty, get help for them so they can get that academic support.
And I have a follow-up question to that. And this is actually a really great question that I wouldn't have thought about. What happens if now we're at a point where I just leave Teams up all the time. So what happens if a family decides to leave Teams up for all of their work, like learning purposes, but they don't actually use Canvas? Will that count as their attendance, or do they actually have to use and log into Canvas?
Well, let me say, in the beginning of the year, and I'm going to let Micah chime in if I'm missing anything, that we're looking at both. So if the student logged into Teams but didn't log into Canvas, we're going in and trying to figure that out and counting, because we know it's a transition period. So the first couple of weeks, or first 3 weeks, we know we're going to have to do some extra things to support families. But we don't want families to become accustomed to that or to rely on that, because in the next few days, that's going to be cut off. And because we feel like we've sufficiently messaged out that Canvas, logging into Canvas, or if you're having technical difficulties, to call into your attendance point of contact. Those are the two ways, unless you're early childhood, we're doing some additional work with them. But we really, really need that folks to recognize that attendance is being taken by your logging into Canvas and working in Teams and doing other things. So Micah, chime in if you need to cover something else that I've not covered in that regard.
Nope, you got it.
Okay, team, is there anything that I've missed? Because I know that I had a list of things that I want to make sure that we mentioned. Anybody has anything they want to offer? Excuse me.
I have another question.
Sure.
And another a couple of questions. Let's say that for whatever reason, my child was not able to log in on Friday. If instead my child logs in on Saturday, will that make up for maybe a missed day, or does that not count?
That does not count. We look at login Monday through Friday. So your students are required to log in each of those days. We don't do makeup on Saturday and Sunday.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. And there's no extra credit for logging in those extra days either.
I wish, but I didn't think about that. So no, we haven't included that.
Yeah. So another question that has popped up is, will the classroom time be recorded so that let's say that families who don't have the traditional schedule or have conflicts during the time will be able to watch them, or is that a policy that's going across, or is that something that's not being implemented right now?
Well, I think teachers are being encouraged to record their lessons, because that's a part of the whole notion of, if you can't participate in synchronous learning, that you're able to access learning by going on and pulling down your assignments, looking at things that teachers have recorded and included, and reaching out to your teachers at other times. So yes.
Okay, awesome.
And I think if parents find that that's not happening, then they should reach out to their teachers and ask.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. I think families, everybody's trying to cover all the bases, but please, by all means, if there's ever a time, and I say this as a family engagement person, if there's ever a time to advocate for your child and the needs that they have, especially when it comes to learning, by all means, if recordings of the class time are what you need to be able to support your child's learning, ask for them. I have another question for you, and you're so good at answering these questions, so thank you so much.
Let's see.
So Wednesdays, does my kid have to log in? Do they have to do anything on that day, or is it kind of like a rest day? Like, what is Wednesday for?
Ma'am, Wednesday is a school day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are all school days. And I know that there's been mixed messaging and there's been urban myths, but Wednesday is, students do have to log in on Wednesday. It's still a required day. Even though it looks a little different than some of the other school days for some schools, yes, students must log in Monday through Friday.
Great, thank
you. It's
not
a rest day.
It is not a rest day, and no, so this was actually flagged. So in terms of recording the class, it may not be possible due to privacy, but you should reach out to your child's teacher to see if they do have maybe like a Flipgrid or some other resource available that gives a recap of what was learned that day. And so thank you, Adam, for flagging that for us, because I want to make sure that families are supported with accurate information. So thank you. So you should, if you miss a day and you want to know what might have been missed, or you want to be able to review the day, see if there is a resource that your child's teacher has for you, to be able to answer, to be able to support your child. And for our pre-K families, there are specific family resources where you can do activities with your children to be able to support them. So I want to make sure that you all, again, feel supported in being able to make this experience as easy as possible given the circumstances, because Lord knows, even as adults, this is not an easy circumstance for any of us. And having to walk children through it is also difficult. So, but by all means, reach out to your child's teacher in school to see what other ways there are to be able to learn about the information that was missed. I think that we have most of the questions, but to get it again, to drive this home, Andrea,
Yes.
you have to log in between 6 a.m. and 11:59 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Monday through Friday.
Friday. Yes.
Including Wednesdays.
Wednesday is not a rest day. No, just because there's no synchronous learning in some schools, it's not a rest day.
Wonderful. And Saturdays and Sundays do not count as login days. You cannot get extra credit or makeup days by logging in Saturday and Sunday.
Correct.
Wonderful.
And I think one other thing is attendance data will always be one day behind. So parents will be getting calls on, say, Tuesday about Monday's attendance, Wednesday about Tuesday's attendance. That's a little different than it was before, because we don't capture our Canvas data until after midnight. So we can't report it till the day.
That's really great. So again, your child's attendance data will not be up to date on the day they log in. It will be reflected the next day.
Correct.
But they should still ask for, if they have any technology issues and they're not able to log on, they should still reach out to their child's teacher and school and attendance point of contact that day.
That day. Yes, ma'am.
That day. And you have to have, and if you do have to take a day of absence, you have to submit proof of why you're absent to get an excused absence.
Correct. And it has to be one of those legal excuse reasons that's listed on the slide.
I just every day counts, so I just want to make sure that our families know all the ways that they can advocate for their child to make sure that they are able to get credit for the time that they are sitting in front of those computers, because I know that there's usually a mom, a dad, an auntie, an uncle, grandma, grandpa, cousin, sister, sitting next to them, somebody making sure that they are able to log in and get in. So I want to make sure that they know that, because it's credit for them too.
Exactly.
Yes. And so one more question, and then we're going to go. So by now, there should be some proof of attendance in Aspen, correct?
Correct.
Correct. And so if that's not the case, then families should, if once they log into Aspen, they don't see proof of attendance, they should reach out to their child's attendance point of contact.
So parents are logging in, I think, to Parent Portal.
Mm-hmm.
That's pulling information from Aspen. So Micah, is Parent Portal up and running and everything's good with that right now?
Yes, so again, the Parent Portal is just for students in grades 6 through 12. It's not yet available for elementary students. And you will only see proof of attendance if there are absences. So if your student has no absences on their record and you click on that daily attendance tab, it'll be blank. So if you see something that's blank, that implies that your student doesn't have any absences. Any absences that do exist will show up there.
Wonderful. And I do want to make it clear that this is only true for schools within DC public schools.
Correct.
So if your child attends a charter school, if your child attends a private school, these policies do not apply to your family. and that you should reach out to your child's school to learn about their attendance policies. So I just wanted to make that clear. That was a question that was asked. Andrea, your team has been so wonderful. Micah, thank you so much. I know that, again, families are really looking for how they can best support their children, making sure that their children are able to log in and learn, and again, get credit for it.
Right.
And so thank you so much for walking our families through that process.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to share, and have a great school year 2021, and be sure to reach out to your attendance folks if you have any questions or concerns. We're here for you.
Absolutely. So just a little bit of final final piece of information. Please, by all means, log on to our YouTube channel to be able to watch past workshops, including this one. They're usually up within 24 hours. So please, if you need to review this workshop, it will be available online. Share it with folks who may not have been able to log in today, and then look through some of the past ones to see if there are answers to your questions, particularly for my pre-K 3 and 4 families. I know that this is not how you envisioned your child starting school, and I feel that for you. And so we do have a workshop specifically about what school looks like for pre-K 3 and 4 families. So I encourage you to go onto our YouTube channel and look for that. Again, we have workshops coming up on the 17th. That is the one where we will discuss credit recovery. So if you have questions about, well, what happens when my high schooler misses too many days, this is the workshop for you. If you're wondering, how do I get my child to graduate from high school, this is the workshop for you. And then again, September 24th, Conversation is the New Talk. That's where we talk about sex with our children. That's not a conversation that I'm looking forward to having with my child, but I know that that's a conversation that I will have to have. And so this workshop will help you figure out how to walk your child through that and to prepare you for it. October 1st, for my high school families, we're learning about Fafsa. So how are we going to pay for college? What does student loans, what does this process look like? And other financial assistance. Then for October 8th, College Admissions 101. What does it take to get my child into college? Then on October 15th, we have supporting students to and through college. How do I get them there? What do I do once they get there? And so our October workshops are not up on the Eventbrite right now, but they will be by the end of the week. And so please keep an eye out. What you can do when you go to the bit.ly link at bit.ly/DCPS Parent U RSVP. Parent U RSVP, what you can do is go ahead and subscribe or follow our collection so that you'll be able to see when we add when we add websites. And for people who are wondering what FAFSA means, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I just Googled it. Again, alphabet soup is basically the food of Washington, D.C. FAFSA means Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So for families who are trying to figure out college costs, this will be something that you fill out to be able to receive grants, to be able to receive student loans. And so this is not a workshop that you want to miss. Again, the application for next year opens on October 1st. And so we're going to walk you through that. But please, by all means, continue, if in doubt, reach out to your child's school for any questions that you might have about policies and resources. Schools are the center of the community. And so our community succeeds when our children succeed, and our children's strongest advocates are you all. So to find some frequently asked questions or additional resources, visit dcpsreopenstrong.com. And then also, we want to know how we did, and I appreciate the shout outs in the comments about appreciating this workshop. Please, if you have time, go to bit.ly/parentueval19 to be able to take this survey to let us know how we did. Did we do a good job? Could we do better? Did we do a great job? So please let us know. And if you have any other workshop ideas or topics that you'd like to share with us. And again, please, if a evaluation isn't your thing, you can email us at parentu@k12.dc.gov. And so thank you again for joining us, Andrea. Thank you to you and your team. Someone said that this is one of the most informative workshops that they have ever participated in. So kudos to you all. And I know and I know that this one is very important to ensure that our students succeed, because in the words of our mayor, every day counts.
And it does.
So you all have a great evening, and thank you all, and have a great rest of the school year, and stay strong and resilient. And if in doubt, ask for information and ask for help.